Thanks for joining us in this STAR training webinar entitled Assistive Technology in Microsoft Word. My name is Laura Parks, and I'm the Assistive Technology Specialist with Tasc, which is Technology Assistance for Special Consumers. We are a nonprofit program of United Cerebral Palsy in Huntsville, and we provide assistive technology services throughout the state of Alabama. This training is sponsored by STAR, which is the statewide assistive technology resource for Alabama, who provides assistive technology trainings, redialization, and demo and loan, and alternative funding throughout the state of Alabama. So today's webinar is called Assistive Technology in Microsoft Word. Tasc and STAR decided to host this webinar because what we found is that many individuals didn't know some of the cool tricks that are in Microsoft Word to make it more accessible for individuals with various abilities, including those perhaps that have some reading and writing disabilities. So let's start at the very beginning. The first thing, Tasc is a Microsoft Accessibility Resource Center, meaning we want to make sure individuals know that what's available in the Windows operating system. If you're using Windows XP, which hopefully you're not at this day and age, or Vista 7 or Windows 8, you have accessibility built in. And the way to start that is the Ease of Access menu. So I'm going to show you on my Windows 7 laptop how to get to that. You just go down to your Start menu, and then All Programs. Select Accessories. And now you'll see a folder that's called Ease of Access. And when you open this, this is the great first starting point to make Windows more easier to use. Since Microsoft Word is a Windows program, when you make changes to your Windows operating system, those changes will also reflect in Microsoft Word. Now the best starting point is that Ease of Access Center. When you open this, you have options as far as starting the magnifier, the narrator, the on-screen keyboard, the high contrast. And if you scroll down, it also lets you explore different settings. So maybe you have trouble using the keyboard on the computer, which is very important for Microsoft Word because you may be typing something. So let's just click and explore this briefly. Now you see there's some different options to turn on. If you have an individual that maybe has some fine motor control concerns, and when they're typing in Microsoft Word, maybe they go to type the letter L and all of a sudden there's 10 L's and they only meant one, that's when turning on filter keys can really help because it can slow down or ignore those brief or repeated keystrokes. So if an individual can't get their finger up fast enough, it will only accept one letter, not 50 of them. Now I will tell you, if you turn on filter keys, it can be a little frustrating when you're using your backspace button or your delete button because you have to lift your finger every single time you want to delete a character. Most of us are used to just holding it down and watching the cursor zoom by. You may also want to utilize something called sticky keys. Sticky keys is a great option because for an individual that maybe can't use two fingers at the same time, or they're strictly a one-finger typer on the keyboard. With sticky keys, if I wanted to capitalize a letter, instead of having to hold Shift at the same time and hit the letter, I can just tap Shift one time and the Windows operating system sticks the key down, and then you don't have to hit it at 2 times. Now if you're also using some shortcuts, which we'll talk a little bit about within Microsoft Word, just quickly get to some menus, then it may be hard to do an Alt-F or Control-S to save. Well, sticky keys would work for that too. So it works with things such as the Alt, the Shift, and the Control key. So that's some of the quick features you may change. Now I want to show you one more thing too. Let me go back to my Start menu, All Programs, Accessories, and back to Ease of Access. Underneath the Ease of Access Center, which we just explored, you'll see 4 different tools that lots of individuals with disabilities could benefit from using. One is the magnifier, so if you had a font in Microsoft Word that you need help seeing, you could magnify it. One is the narrator, which means it reads everything on the screen. This is designed for individuals with visual impairment or blind. Not necessarily the easiest tool to use if you have a learning disability unless you learn the shortcuts. The on-screen keyboard may be something that you might need if you can't actually type on the keyboard, but you can use a mouse, such as a joystick mouse, a trackball mouse, or even a head mouse, a camera mouse. Then you have the on-screen keyboard, and you'll see I can just go into my Word document and I can type away. Now my keyboard here is set to dwell, so I don't even have to click. And if you'll notice, there's an excellent word prediction built in right on the keyboard. So if you have a student that maybe needs to use word prediction, but you don't want to spend the money on an additional software, try the on-screen keyboard, and they could also still type, but it's not going to show up the word prediction. They'd have to use this keyboard here. Now, if I go into my options, I can show to click on the keys instead of hovering. And there's some different options. I could even use scanning. So if I could just hit one button, I could still use this keyboard even if I couldn't control the mouse per se. So there's a great options, and that's built in there. And then one more feature, and I get a lot of people wanting to try this, is speech recognition. You getting the hang of where the ease of access is by now? So you have the Windows speech recognition. Now you do have to have a microphone attached to your computer, and you get a little floating toolbar that pops up. You just click it and speak, and it will type what you say. Now it is not always accurate. I won't be demonstrating that today since I'm recording my voice through the computer, but it is a great feature to know it's available to let students practice using it. Now I will warn you, speech recognition can be difficult for individuals that don't have a typical speech pattern. Maybe they're very Southern and have a very Southern drawl, or maybe they have some articulation concerns, or they slur words. Speech recognition often isn't as accurate. It also can be frustrating when you're going back and making changes because of all the errors that may occur. But it's something great to try. Oh, and one more thing with speech recognition, it's important to have a good microphone. Over-the-head microphones with the microphone attached close to the mouth works best. And you kind of need a quiet environment. So a typical classroom with 15, 25, 30 students, it's going to be difficult for speech recognition to be accurate, as well as a person talking to their computer may disturb their peers. So that may be something that's tried at home, in a library, or in the resource room, not necessarily in the general education classroom. I have the handout posted below this webinar, so feel free to download it. And we've kind of gone through some of the ease of access options. Now, one of the things that's not built into Microsoft Word but that you can download is called WordTalk. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes showing you how to use WordTalk. I'm just going to start with a blank document. I've provided you the website for wordtalk.org.uk. And it's a great free program that works within Microsoft Word. It is very easy to install. Now, if you're in a school system and you have limited privileges, you may not be able to utilize this tool without getting your IT person to give you permissions to download it, which can be kind of frustrating, I know. So let me show you some examples of why I like WordTalk. The first thing is WordTalk is designed to provide audio feedback when you're typing. So I'm just going to first show you, I'm going to go ahead and go into settings, and I'm going to go ahead and do it, my speech. You see it there. I can change the voice, the speed, and the volume. And now I'm going to have it echo letters. And you're going to hear what it sounds. And I'm going to go ahead and have it echo words and echo sentences. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking for a minute, and the next things you're going to hear is the computer talking.
D I D did Y O U U H A V E
So hopefully you heard the speeching each word as I typed. Now I'm going to go ahead and just finish typing the sentence, and I'm going to change my option. So this time it's only going to finish the sentence. You're not going to echo the letters. It's not going to echo the words.
Weekend. Did you have a nice weekend? Weekend. Did you have a nice weekend?
You might have noticed I accidentally deleted the sentence, but you saw when I put the punctuation at the end of the sentence, it spoke the sentence. So that's what it's cueing to speak this sentence. So why is this helpful? Well, first of all, I love that it can echo letters. If I have a student that's supposed to practice their spelling words and perhaps they have a fine motor issue and their handwriting is difficult for them, I may have them type it on the computer. Well, instead of them just typing it on the computer, I could also have the computer spell it back while they're typing it. This provides another way for them to learn how to spell the word. Really simple and easy to do. Also, for students that struggle with spelling, sometimes hearing what they're thinking and what they're typing can provide them another way to self-correct. So maybe if they wanted to say, did you have a nice weekend, and maybe they're going to respond to that, something like this.
I did. How about yay?
Perhaps you immediately heard that it didn't read it correctly. It said yay instead of you. Even though there's no spelling error, because I don't see the little squiggly line, I can now go back and fix that. It's very simple and easy to do. Now, another nice feature about WordTalk, you could also have it, you could highlight what you want it to read, and then hit the talking button up top.
Did you have a nice weekend? Yes.
And depending on which option you pick, it'll read the whole thing, the paragraph, the sentence, the word. And now what I also like to do is when I am checking, let's say I typed a word, and I have trouble spelling the word important. So I type it, and I see that Microsoft Word told me that I misspelled it. Well, normally when we do that, we right-click the word to correct the spelling, right? Well, the problem is if I'm having trouble spelling a word, I may not always be able to read the correct spelling of the word either. So as a student who struggles, I may just pick the first choice. Well, in this case, imprint is not the word I want. I want the word important. But I would have to be able to read the words to know the correct spelling. Well, what's nice about WordTalk is if once I highlight the word, I click ABC, that's their spelling option, and now you're going to hear it actually gives me the choices.
Imprint. Important. Imprints. Important.
So what was nice about that is it gave me the option to hear the spelling, the correct choices. Now if a student is a significantly poor speller, it may not catch the correct choices. It uses the same vocabulary dictionary that Microsoft Word does. So if a student has trouble with spell checking correctly, guessing words in Microsoft Word, WordTalk's not going to help. But it does provide some audio feedback to let you know the correct choice. So I do love that about it. So that's WordTalk, and that is now an add-in that you have to go to the website wordtalk.org.uk and download it. It's free to download. It's very simple to import it into Microsoft Word. They have great directions on how to walk through it, and it works great. But you would have to get your IT's permission if you have a computer that's locked down and you can't install anything because you're not the admin. I'm just going to go ahead and close this document, and I'll go back to our Word document, which is kind of our outline for today's training. So now let's dig into Microsoft Word more. So everything I'm going to show you from this point forward is something that's already in Office 2010. Most of these features are in 2007 as well and in 2013, but on my computer I'm using 2010, and I find that that's what most school systems are currently using. So let's start at the beginning, and I'm going to show you some few things that we can change to make it easier to use Microsoft Word and to accommodate a diverse set of learners. So let's first click on the Word file in the far left-hand corner. And now I'm going to go down to Info. And now this is a very cool feature most people don't know that's in Microsoft Word. You have the option to check for issues. When I click this, I have the ability to check accessibility. Watch what happens. Oh no, if you look to the right, there's lots of errors. This means that my document is not very accessible. If I was sharing this, I would need to fix these to make sure things are accessible for individuals of all abilities. So what I could do is click picture 9. The problem is this. It says their alternative text helps readers understand information, present it in pictures and other objects. So for example, if someone was visually impaired and was using a screen reader, like such as Narrator, where everything was being read aloud, when it got to the Tasc logo, it would not know what to say. So the nice thing about the accessibility checker is it tells you how to fix it. It says to add an alternate text to a picture or object, right-click on the object, and it says select the format command, which is right up here. It says switch to the alt text. And you would walk through the different steps. It teaches you how to do it. And then you could add a description to that. And so you would be more accessible for someone that might have a visual impairment. So the nice thing about this is it walks you through different things and explains where you might have made some mistakes. And I have some blank characters, which would make it very difficult if you weren't using a screen reader. Now, the nice thing about the accessibility checker is you don't have to have the screen reader to test it. If you're not familiar with using a screen reader, it's very difficult to test your documents using a screen reader, whether to know if it's really the problems with the document or if it's you who's not familiar with using the tool. So Microsoft is taking the guesswork out of that with their accessibility checker. So that's something that's already built into the operating system that was new with 2010. I don't believe it's available in 2007, but it does help make things easier to use. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. I'm not going to fix my errors now. I will fix those before I publish the document. I'll scroll back up. So I'm going to go back now into File and then back to Info. So we've kind of explored how to check for issues. So now I'm going to click on Options on the bottom left-hand side. So File and Options. So let's start at the top, the General Options. Now, one of the things you may not know is you can change your color scheme. Mine is set for silver, and let's go ahead and take a look if I change it to blue. Now you'll notice the background of my document, as well as the toolbar itself, has changed to blue. Some students prefer different colors. Maybe they think it's less distracting, or maybe visually they feel like they can see it better. But that was just under File, Options, and then General, Show Color Scheme. I'm pretty used to using silver, so I'll keep it with silver, but I will show you what black looks like too. Now this kind of looks more like what is standard on most Mac for Word users. All right, let's go down to the next. I'm going to skip display. There's not a whole lot of features you might want to utilize there. That's pretty much if you're having the character showing and different things. Now go to the Proofing tab. Now proofing is really important. Now here you have lots of different options. We're going to start at the beginning choices and work our way down. So the first thing is the AutoCorrect options. Now if you're a cell phone user texting, you may find you're texting a word that automatically fixes. Well, Word does the same thing. If you'll notice down below is some that are pre-customed into Microsoft Word that this is going to already correct. So if I put about with 2 B's, it's going to go ahead and fix it. And then these are the most common mistakes people make: flipping I's and E's, forgetting one letter. You know, even if you take the word like tomorrow, I bet that's in here. These are all alphabetical. But you see there's a lot already pre-stored of these mistakes. Yep, and there's tomorrow. So most people will misspell tomorrow by only putting one R, so this will automatically fix it. So if you have a student that consistently makes a mistake in spelling a word, you could go ahead and fix it within Microsoft Word. So for example, let's say I have a student that constantly misspells the word there. So maybe they spell there, and I'm talking about there as an ownership, like their dog, their things, and they put T-H-E-I-E-R. Well, Microsoft Word already knows that that's a common mistake. Well, what if our student is a poor speller and spells it this way? Well, that's not a choice in there, but now I can fix it. So I'm going to show you what happens. I'm just going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. Now watch, I'm going to just type it right here. Watch what happens when I type there the wrong way. But because I consistently make that mistake, Word will automatically fix it because I've saved it into that category. Now here's what I like to do. Sometimes I like to teach students how to make their lives easier and to minimize keystrokes. So I'll go back into proofing and go back into autocorrections options. Let's say we're doing a report on George Washington, and I don't want to have to type George Washington 50 times. So now with autocorrect, I can type GW, and see, I already have George Washington built in. What if I was doing a report on Abraham Lincoln? And now, oops, I misspelled it. Let me fix that. We'll replace that, okay. We're not cheating. We're not teaching students how to cheat. We're teaching them how to work smarter. Especially if a student is a slow typer, this will reduce their number of keystrokes and hopefully increase their speed, getting more information out on the paper, which is really the goal when we're using Microsoft Word, is for them to be able to effectively get their thoughts onto the paper in a way that makes sense. So that was autocorrection under proofing. And that was our autocorrect options. There's other different ones. Primarily you're going to use this first tab, so that's the only one we're going to focus on. Now then we get this category of when correcting spelling in Microsoft Office programs. Now you probably have it checked on your computer to ignore words in uppercase. The first thing I like to do is uncheck that. I have seen too many professionally printed pamphlets and flyers that have an uppercase thing like "come to this event" or "wow, big savings" with a misspelled word, because Microsoft Word ignored all uppercase. So go ahead and uncheck that. It doesn't hurt. You'll also know there's some different things. You have the option for custom dictionaries. If a student is writing a report, maybe about dinosaurs, there may be a lot of words that this Microsoft Word doesn't know. So it's very simple to create your own word list and add your own words to correct the spelling. So you don't have to worry about Microsoft Word showing the words spelled wrong because you've already customized it in there. So it's very simple to customize your word list for the subject area or your dictionary. Now when we scroll down a little bit, you see things such as check spelling as you type. Currently mine is enabled. This is the standard default on Microsoft Word. But for a student that's a poor speller, this could slow them down. If they're typing a sentence and they notice the little squiggly line showing that they misspelled a word, will they stop and fix the word and get frustrated that they can't spell the word correctly, or will they keep typing? Now for the student that keeps typing, great, not a concern. But for that student who stops and gets frustrated, their quality and production of amount of work is going to be decreased because they're distracted by the spell checking. They're too much focused on their poor spelling and wanting to make sure it's correct. So let's take it out of there. Let's teach them to check spelling only at the end. So if you turned it off, it's not going to check it until you actually indicate for the program to check the spelling, probably at the end. This is also something you may do to help with standardized assessments, since most students are not allowed to use spelling programs on standardized testing unless they have an accommodation, so perhaps you don't want them to use spell checking. You could turn it off there too. You can also turn off grammar errors. Maybe spelling is okay for them to stop and check, but grammar, they're just not there. They're not writing. They don't understand commas and colons and semicolons. So just turn off that grammar as you type. Now, the other option on there is show readability statistic. I'll show you how to use that in just a moment. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn off check spelling as you type and check grammar with spelling. Remember, the reasons I turn these off is because often I find this helps the students concentrate more on the flow of writing and getting their thoughts down, not so much on the grammar and not so much on the spelling, which may frustrate them and slow them down. And then if for some reason you only wanted it for this document, you could make the exceptions only for this document, or you can make it for all new documents. I will warn you, I've turned it off before when I've worked with students, and then I've sent out emails with spelling errors because this also affects sometimes your Outlook. So be cautious if you are turning this off and you're using, other students are relying on the spell checking and don't know to hit the button. So that's a little bit about using your proof and options. So let's take a look now at save. Now save, in here you can really save how quickly the file saves. So let's say you have a student that's very distractible, and you'll know that they'll need to get up, move around, they may walk around from the computer, they may forget to save. The nice thing is you can change the save auto time to actually a smaller amount of time. Now for me, 10 minutes is reasonable. I can recreate my work. But if a student is really labored over it, 5 minutes of work is a lot to have to make up if you accidentally close the document. And if you'll notice, it also does keep the last autosave version even if I close without saving. This has been a lifesaver for me. Make sure you have that checked on your computer, because I know I've closed a document before and say don't save, and I go, oh, I made some changes and I meant to save it. I wasn't thinking. Our students get distracted like that. The bell rings, their friend is doing something, they accidentally close the document. I want them still to be able to get their work. And as you can see, it tells you where to find it. So let's say a student loses their work, keep them calm and say, well, let's go back into our file, options, and then look under save to see where that document is saved, and then you could open the folder and recover that file. So it's a real great tool. Now you also under here, I'm going to skip down now, we talked a little about save, about customize ribbon. And I'm going to step out for a second of this tool menu and come back to it. This is considered your custom ribbon. It goes up here from file all the way over to your close side. So your custom ribbon is what tabs are shown. So right now I have home, insert, page, layout, references, lots of different ones showing. Now add-ins was where my Word Talk was in. So if you haven't installed Word Talk, you probably don't have an add-in column. Well, for some students, they don't need to be changing all of these things, such as references. I couldn't tell you the last time I've used this particular toolbar. So what I may do is go into File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and since I told you I don't really use references, I'm just going to uncheck it, and then I'm going to click OK. And now that tab is gone. So if you have a student, maybe a student that has some ADHD, some executive functioning concerns, they're constantly fidgeting and looking at other tabs or trying to figure out how to do something, just go ahead and get rid of the tab if they don't have any reason to be utilizing it. But each of these tabs can provide some different supports for different reasons, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those. But this is considered, again, your custom ribbon. You can right-click here too and customize the ribbon, or you can just come back into your File, Options, and then customize your ribbon from this tool menu. That's the nice thing about Microsoft Word. There's always more than one way to do it. Now, if when we were in Options, the next choice was Customize the Quick Access Toolbar. That's this little toolbar right up top. I'm circling it now with my mouse. This is called your Quick Access Toolbar because you can quickly add things to it. So I'm just going to go down to the little drop down, and as you see, mine has Save, and it has Spelling and Grammar. Since I turned off Spelling and Grammar, I want to teach them to use that. Undo maybe, or redo. Now I'm going to show you my favorite command. This is only available in Office 2010, in Word 2010, and I'm sure it's in 13. I haven't played much with 13, but I know it's not in 7, unfortunately. So if you're using Office 2007, now you still could be using Windows 7, but in Office 2007, you're not going to have this option. Now back into my Word Options Quick Access Toolbar. If you'll notice up here it says Choose Commands. Well, I'm not going to just do popular commands, I'm going to do all commands. So these are things that the computer could do easily. Well, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the S words for speak. It's quite a long list of commands that the Microsoft Word could add to that quick access toolbar. Almost there. So here's speak. I click it here in the left column. Now I have to click add, and you'll see it's going to go into the right column. So now let me show you what that does. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the sentence right here. And now I'm going to come up here to speak, and you'll hear what it says.
When correcting spelling in Microsoft Office programs.
And that speech was kind of a little bit harsh. You can go into your settings of your Windows operating system and change the voice speed and the voice quality. But the nice thing about it is now you can have any text in a Word document read aloud. Well, why is that so helpful? Well, first, if a student is typing a paper, they could use the speak text, highlight their text, and speak it, and hear it back. How many times have you reread an email and reread it wrong because you read it the way you thought you typed it, not the way you actually typed it? Well, this can become your second set of eyes or an extra proofer to let you hear what you've typed, not just rereading it. So it's a great way to teach students how to proofread their work. To really listen to their mistakes, they can pause it and fix the word that's spelled wrong, because these often are spelling errors that are not spelling related, but they're related to choosing the wrong word because the word looked light or just it didn't quite make sense, or they forgot a word. So it's super duper helpful. This also is a great tool to teach students because they could be on the internet or reading something on the computer. They can learn to copy it and paste it into Microsoft Word and then have it read aloud. Now, not all textbooks are accessible where you can highlight the text, but if you, per se, had a textbook and you could copy the paste and the text into the Word, then you could use that as a free tool. Because it's built into Microsoft Word, you do not have to install anything. So that's the advantage of this using the Speak selection on the Quick Access toolbar, because you don't have to install anything, you just add it. So even if you're not an administrator on your computer, so if you went to the public library, for instance, you could still utilize this feature, which is a great tool. So that's your Speak selection. You can add other tools into your Quick Access toolbar. Feel free to explore. If you have specific concerns, just feel free to email tasc@ucphuntsville.org and say, hey, I want to know, how is there a tool that could be added to the Quick Access toolbar that would do this? And there might be one. We'll be happy to look for that and try to find it. But this is by far my favorite option. So let's take a few minutes now and really explore that customized ribbon. The customized ribbon is where all those tools are that you can have quickly access to. So the first one, we're in the Home tab now. And so in the Home tab, you can do certain things. So I can take my font and change the font of my text. There has been some research showing that certain fonts help, certain may be easier to see if you have a visual impairment or tracking or dyslexia. Again, it's personal preference for a lot of students, but let them choose to figure out what works for them. So they could change the font using your Home tab, which, believe it or not, is a way to help with assistive technology. You can't do that in a textbook or a stuck font. You can also go in here under Font, and you could change the color of the font. Sometimes students do better when the font's a different color. So maybe if a student prefers a purple font, they feel like it stands out and it's easier on their eyes. Listen to students if they complain about having headaches, or if they fatigue at the end of the day, if they have a seizure disorder, if they wear glasses, or even if they maybe have a diagnosis of autism. Sometimes those are the types of individuals that would benefit from changing colors. And the next thing I'm going to tell you is how to change the background. So let's say I wanted to change the background of this. Now I can change just the background of the text itself. So I'm going to do that with the paint bucket here. We're still under the tab of Home, so I'm now going to put it yellow. And I'm actually going to go ahead and make this a little bold so it's contrasting. You can see that really pops a lot different than the black on the white. What if I did it this way? Now I'm going to choose my font to be white, and I'm going to make my background black. Again, students all learn different and visually see differently, so it may surprise you that a student says, oh, I like this contrast better, or it's easier for me to read. We could take data and show that it increases their fluency or increases their comprehension. Even if the data says it doesn't, if a student feels like they can read better when it's this color, it didn't take a lot of time, and it's a free tool built into Microsoft Word. So let them go ahead and make those changes. Now you may have to set a standard and say, okay, you've got 2 minutes to make your font the way you want it, and then you're going to start writing. So you might have to set some boundaries for those students that have self-control issues or time management, but this is a great way to let them control their style. Now, one of the things I like to do too is once I get a color scheme, and I'm just going to be funny, and I'm going to pick my favorite colors, which happen to be orange and blue. No, I'm not an Auburn fan. I'm a Florida fan. So this is my style, and I really like blue backgrounds with orange fonts. And just to be even sillier, I'm going to even change the font style. And I'm going to pick something like this. I think that stands out really nice, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to go ahead and save this style. So I'm just going to click here, and under the style, still in my Home tab, and I'm going to save selection as a new quick style. This is going to be the Go Gator style, and I'm going to click OK. Now, let me go back 1 second to that. Now here's my font, and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to modify it, And down here it says add to quick style only in this document. I'm actually going to make it into new documents as well. So now if I had to open a new document, you're going to see the Go Gators pops up. Now I'm not certain why it picked black. That wasn't correct. It was supposed to be blue. So let me go back here and modify it. And it looks like it did it correctly, but for some reason it didn't do the background correctly. Template. And let me just quickly change it here. Back to blue. It's not the right color blue, but that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and save it again. And if when I type it, I can go back and forth. You get the gist. And it takes a little playing with it to get used to that. Now I'm going to go actually cheat and use my undo to undo that. Maybe go back to normal. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you that's all still under our home category. And I just walked you through on how to create a new quick style. So now there's a tab that's missing from mine. It's called the Developer tab. I do want to share briefly with you that tab because I think it can be helpful as a way to use assistive technology with Microsoft Word. So I'm going to go up here to File, back to Options, and back to my Customize ribbon. And now over on the right side, I'm going to go ahead and add my Developer one back. I'm going to click OK. And now I have my Developer tab. Now in the Developer tab, up top here, you can see there is a box that has some funky little icons on it. These little icons are great because these let you make a Word document into a form. Let me show you what that looks like. So let's say I'm giving a quiz. So the quiz is, I'm going to do a little bit of quiz about Alabama. So one of the questions may be, which is not a team in Alabama? Let's be more specific. A college football team in Alabama. Now, I could create this to be a drop-down multiple choice box. So here's my drop-down list. And now I have my list and I want to edit it. So I right-click. So now I've got a drop-down box, and I want to make sure I put the choices. So now I have to go into my design mode, and now it lets me put my items. So I would say Auburn, and then I'll enter. And then you can quickly play. So there's different options in forms, and we may do another webinar on forms showing you more fully how to do it, but you could do other things of maybe you want to do which school's in Tuscaloosa, and you do a drop box, and then you have your choices, and you can make changes. You can do a drop box, a menu, a check menu. Like the nice thing with the check boxes is you could do more than one. So it may be which are mascots in that state of Alabama, and you can list them and have them check it. Or if you do a drop-down list, it may be one choice, or you can do a fill in the blank with your different things. So this is really great to create like a test in Microsoft Word and let students go in and do it. You have the option, if you'll notice up here, to restrict editing. Meaning once you make it, the students would only be able to answer the questions by selecting the checkbox, filling in the blank, or selecting from the drop-down list. They would not be able to change the question. And then you can even restrict it so it would only save under their name. So once they're done, they would hit save, but they would save it under their name. And the next student would just open up the blank document again to begin the next test for new. So it's a great way to kind of make computerized tests using the Developer tab. So you'll have to make sure that's showing. Now if you're just having a student use it to type a document, you may want to hide this tab because it's going to just distract them. I'm just going to customize the ribbon and take away the developer just so you can see how quickly and easy that is. I'm going to go back to our handout just for a minute. Now remember when I changed the color of my font and the color of the background, it did not make the whole text the whole page that color. Kind of just did the text. I mean, even if I did a Control All, it's still going to keep my borders, my margins white. Well, for some students, that's not what they need. They actually need the whole page, the solid color. So this time you go to your tab for Page Layout, and now you can change the page color. So let's put it yellow, and it actually makes the whole page yellow. Now don't get distracted. My Tasc logo has got a white background, that's why it's coming up white, but the whole page is yellow. So perhaps the student does better with high contrast and you want to create that for them. So that's one way to change the page colors. And I'll just go ahead and go back to no color like it was. So very simple and easy to provide some different colors for creating your Word document and provide that high contrast. Now one more tab, and what I want to share with you in Microsoft Word is the View tab. So in the View tab, now I like to use the tabs. They're very helpful for me to have access to these tools, but for a student it may be distracting. So instead of using a print layout, I could actually go into full screen mode. And now those toolbars are pretty much gone, and I strictly can focus on what I'm trying to type. Now sometimes it will give you the option under View Options. I can view 2 pages at a time, so it looks more like a book. This actually can be very motivating for students because they're like, wow, I wrote a book. It doesn't look so much like paper. It's kind of fun. But then again, it's also a little bit difficult. Now in this view mode, I still can go in and type and edit. So maybe I want to make this color. So I'm not limited. It's not that I can't do things in it. So it went ahead and changed pages for me. So I can still navigate in this option. It's not that I'm restricted to it. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to the one page. So even when I'm in view screen mode, I can make some changes. I'm going to go ahead and close that. That will just help prevent from having to see it. There's some other features you can turn off and on the rulers, the grid lines, which may or may not be helpful. Change out the navigation pane, the left-hand side. Now let's talk a little bit about zoom. This is really important for students that have some visual impairments. Now I could easily take this document and make my font bigger by highlighting it, going back to my home, changing my font size, either there or actually picking a bigger number. Now I'm just going to go ahead and go undo all the way back. But what's nice too is there's also some shortcuts. Now if you're in the view menu, you could zoom in right here. Just clicking zoom and change your percentage. So you could customize whatever percentage you need it, and it makes the whole page bigger. When I print the paper of this document, it's still going to be the same size. So most of my font here is size 14. It's going to print at about size 14. But when I'm viewing it, because I've zoomed in, it looks bigger than that. So I could change that from my view zoom. I can also come all the way down here to the right-hand side of my screen, and I can hit the plus and minus button to zoom in more. And my favorite shortcut is this will actually work in any Word document, Microsoft Office, Outlook, Word, Internet Explorer, but you can actually hold down your control key and then take your mouse scrolly wheel, or even if you're using the touchpad like I am, and scroll up, and that scrolls in, or scroll down, and that zooms out. You'll notice on the right-hand side, my font is changing, and it's getting smaller and bigger. This is strictly zooming in the text and the font. I'm not getting bigger toolbars, I'm not getting bigger message windows. So if you have someone that has a visual impairment, and let's say they're trying to use the scroll bars on the right-hand side or the bottom of the screen, they need those fonts bigger, you're going to want to use the Ease of Access Center and make the entire operating system have larger fonts and larger scroll bars. The same thing with high contrast. If you have a student that does really well with the yellow text on a black background and they need to use it throughout the computer, go ahead and set the operating system to high contrast, and that will just make it easier to use throughout the computer, and that makes the toolbars and the menus, the scroll things, everything those high contrast. So that's some quick shortcuts. So hopefully what you've learned today is there's lots of tools built into Microsoft Word to make it more accessible for individuals with disabilities. It can be a great tool for someone with a struggling reading and writing if you make some of those changes like we talked about, perhaps turning off and on the spell checking and the grammar, making them control it, using Word Talk or using the speak selection to provide some auditory feedback. And again, don't Don't underestimate the power of the Ease of Access Center. Microsoft has really researched and figured out what tools is it that most individual disabilities benefit from, and they've already added them to the operating system so you don't have to download anything. So hopefully you'll use Microsoft Word now and you can see how it can become more accessible for individuals with disabilities.